Please welcome Sapna Maheshwari, business reporter, and her guests, Jesper Brodin, President and CEO of Ingka Group IKEA, and Ryan Gellert, CEO of Patagonia.
All right. Welcome, Jesper and Ryan. Thank you so much for being here today. Looking forward to a great conversation. So I'd like to dive right in. Patagonia and IKEA are two of the best-known consumer brands in the world. And it can be hard for retailers to talk about prioritizing the environment when you're also selling consumers a lot of stuff. But you've both talked about how the structures of your companies make that a little bit more palatable than, say, the traditional publicly traded retailer. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you're structured and how that affects what you can prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to be here. It's wonderful, Jesper, to be with you. Jesper and I served together on the B team, so we've gotten to know each other a little bit. And today, in this day and age, it's the first time we've actually met in person, so it's quite nice to be here with you. As far as our structure, we've been a privately held company over our entire 51-year history. We made some news a couple of years ago when we restructured Patagonia. And just to step back a little bit and talk to you about why we did that, how we did that, and ultimately where we've landed. Our founders have always wrestled with owning a business. Yvon Chouinard has been really consistent and vocal in saying, particularly internally, I've never seen a billion-dollar business that I like or respect, and I sure as hell don't want to own one. And so he always had this real tension with just the fact that he owned a big business, one that was growing as much as he did. And so to distill down a complex process into some simple form, what we did is really seek to answer two fundamental questions about the future structure of Patagonia. Number one, how could we cash flow the environment in much bigger ways right now? And how could we ensure the ongoing integrity of running Patagonia according to our values? And so what we put in place is two structures, a perpetual purpose trust and a 501c4. And the perpetual purpose trust oversees the business, make sure people like me that are tasked with running the business continue to do that according to our values, take all of our profits, donate those on an annual basis to the 501c4, and that's the money that we give away to cash flow the environment through the Holdfast Collective.
Interesting. Feels like it's an experiment in progress.
I think Patagonia is a 51-year experiment in doing business differently.
And what about IKEA?
Well, first of all, it's such a wonderful company. It's so interesting to see the model and most of all that it works. I think it's fantastic. IKEA, we're a foundation as well. So we are basically, since 1980, we are foundation owned. If you ask me how the company is structured and how it works, I'm still trying to understand that myself after 7 years as CEO. But, there is an interesting thing with the structure. There's a lot of companies who have a similar foundation base, but it's basically 100% foundation owned. When we pay dividends, so about 15% of our bottom line result goes to dividends. That goes straight to charitable purposes. And then we reinvest 85% in our growth and in our continuity of the business. So it's an interesting loop. What I think is maybe an important thing to note, though, is that obviously, to a certain extent, I believe my role as a CEO is simpler than being a quarterly-based listed company. So full respect for that. If I've been criticized by my board for not doing enough on sustainability, so that's my situation. But I also want to say, I think in these days, we need to bust a couple of myths that are out there, because I think whether you're a privately owned or foundation-based company, that's not really the point. Mm-hmm. So the point is that we are transitioning, not only Patagonia, I guess, and IKEA, but we're transitioning the economy to a climate-smart, resource-smart, cost-smart, business-smart, brand-smart economy. And we are at the cusp of that right now. So wherever you are, whatever business you are, and there are a lot of C.E.O.s out there in private held companies that are taking the right decisions in this transformation. It's difficult, but I think whether the structure is a foundation or not, you better be on the train, both for ethical and for business reasons.
So Patagonia obviously is a well-known brand, but in the world of apparel retail, $1 billion is actually moderately sized. Mm-hmm. Companies like Gap, Nordstrom, et cetera, are much bigger. IKEA, on the other hand, is the world's biggest furniture brand with around $50 billion in annual sales.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Can any company that moves so much physical product a year truly prioritize sustainability, or do you have to ultimately sell less stuff?
Oh, now it's getting delicious.
Here we go. Here we go.
So I have to go to another meeting. No. So,
Over to you, Jesper.
so listen, the thing is, it's exactly the opposite, okay? We couldn't be IKEA without being incredibly good at sustainability. And, you know, it's just, if I go to the metrics, it makes so much sense because it couldn't work. And the reason is, if I look at the IKEA Scope 3 climate footprint, which is basically covering from raw material, forest, production, transport, retail, life at home, and end of life for products. If you look at the carbon footprint, where you today have about 40% is raw material, actually, so that's a big one. 12%, I think, is production, 8% transport, and so forth. So if you look at that, and you put on top of that the transparency of our cost footprint in IKEA, it's quite similar. So when we have been reducing carbon since Paris, so we are today, which is super interesting, we are at -24, a little bit more than -24, which means we are on track to deliver to the Paris Agreement, the -50 by 2030. So we are at that point, absolute -24, and business growth +31. And when you look at everything we've done in the value chain, we have taken out carbon equal taken out cost. So we need to change the narrative that this comes with pain or at a premium, because our customers would never be able to afford paying extra for sustainability, and they shouldn't, because this is actually the way that we perform as a business. And if I just finish with that to say, if you imagine a footprint of IKEA with 40% material cost in a world that is growing in population, resources are getting more scarce, do you think that we will be successful with virgin material economy linear-based in the future? Of course not. So we are in a hurry, both for the ethical side, but also for the economic side, actually.
You're saying consumers can't afford to pay more for sustainability?
No.
So it's a delicate tension.
It's very interesting. We do, every second year, we do a survey with, I think it's about 33,000 people, more than 30 markets. So it's, and the interesting thing is, in the last data we had, 68% of our customers think climate change is the biggest issue with humanity, and they are deeply concerned. Interesting enough, actually, 64%, which is kind of has increased a lot the last years, is actually now making active decisions to which brand they buy from and so on. Most of them say, I don't know if it makes a difference, but I do it anyhow. So when we ask them, are you prepared to pay extra, 6% say yes, only 6%. And here's the interesting mistake we don't want to make, to think that they don't care after all. But when I meet single mothers with 2 jobs, 2 kids, and do home visits, they say, I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So it's as simple as that, you know.
Right.
And if you look at the economic havoc we have seen the last years with inflationary, people are speaking in financial magazines about the inflation is coming down. But you know what? It's a game of accumulation. So for people out there, it's still incredibly difficult, and even more so.
And that's an interesting point, because I think Patagonia has taken a little bit of a different philosophy. Probably the biggest knock on Patagonia is, well, it's expensive. It's a luxury. Not everyone can afford it. Yep. So I guess, how do you think about this paradigm? Do you think companies like IKEA need to sell more stuff, or are there other ways?
I think, first of all, probably the biggest paradox within Patagonia over our entire history is, how can a company that makes apparel have a purpose statement of, we're in business to save our home planet? We obsess about the quality of product that we make. We obsess about its performance. We obsess about its footprint, the impact that it has. We obsess and invest significantly in aftermarket services like repair, where we run, I think, probably North America's largest apparel repair center. And we do repair around the world. We spend probably $25 million a year on product repair. And now we're scaling resale. And we do all of that acknowledging that at the end of the day, we are making product that a small percentage of our customers really need to perform in adverse conditions outdoors. And a lot of them just like and want to buy. And that's the biggest tension. So I don't want to dodge that or hide from that. I think those are the facts. And so what I believe in our 51-year history where we've had the biggest impact, it's not the money we've given away. It's not positions that we've taken on different topics. It's not eco-innovation that we've pioneered and open sourced to the industry. It's just trying to show up every day as a more responsible and wholly imperfect model of what a business can look like. And that's the game we're playing, and that's the little dent in the universe that we're trying to make.
I mean, and just to kind of, I guess, hone in on that one point, though, do you feel, because Patagonia is taking out ads saying people, don't buy this,
getting
this sweater.
people to rethink consumption, their relationship with goods. I mean, I think the other thing I'll add is we engineer product to last a lifetime. And so I think there is kind of a true cost element to what we make and how we make it. We don't make product for seasons. We make product for lifetimes. And if that product has an issue and you're not using it, broken zipper, hole, otherwise, we'll repair it for free. If you're done with that product, but it's still usable, we'll buy it back from you and sell it to somebody else that will continue to use it. So that's really how we think about the relationship with our customers on this. Ultimately, the ad that you refer to in the New York Times in 2011 on Black Friday was don't buy this jacket. And that's what people often bring up as if we took this big, bold position on don't buy this. I think the real value in that ad, and it's available online, you can go read it, was the block text below that explained in great detail all of our best thinking at the time, 13 years ago, about how to minimize the footprint of this jacket, and saying to the world, and still, here's the net impact of this jacket. We've done everything we know how to do, and it is still net negative. And so before you buy things, just think about whether you need it, and if you buy things of quality, and see yourself as an owner, not a consumer of those things.
And I think your view is that your products are priced at a certain level because you can't do this sustainably at a lower point.
We have margins that are competitive with our competitors in the industry, period. So we don't have fatter margins than others in the industry. It is funny, and I'm going to sound a little defensive here because we're so often referred to as Patagucci, or as if we are setting. I saw you thinking. But we don't set the price points in the industry, and by that I mean we're rarely, if ever, actually at the upper tier. There are competitors who are consistently higher than us. I think that mashup of names has a pretty long lifespan. But the reality is, as you stated, we price our product based on the inputs and the way it's built and the service that we surround it with, and thinking about the lifespan and the usable life of the product, not as some sort of seasonable fashion item.
Well, I guess in the vein of selling less clothing and furniture or thinking differently about it, I think you've both kind of mentioned new programs that you're piloting. And that's, I think, products can go a lot of different places. You can recycle, repair, resell. And I think IKEA is piloting a new project with a peer-to-peer marketplace in a couple of cities. And I'd love to hear more about what that is and what you're seeing so far and what you're hoping to achieve with this model.
It's going to be incredibly embarrassing. It's a pilot if it now doesn't work. But I think maybe to lead into that, so basically the interesting thing of redefining consumption, I think first of all, Patagonia, I wish we were as good as you in communicating and touching both people's hearts and minds, and we're trying to learn. But the thing is, also busting some of the myths about consumption. To start with, if I look at the bulk of consumption out there, of course, is ordinary people with basic needs. So if you look at life at home, people don't buy a lot of sofas or mattresses or tables spontaneously. So most people are actually, it's need-based, and then there is, of course, things on top of that. But if you look at, for us to crack this, and today we can speak with confidence from the climate angle. I think nature you can speak from confidence in many ways as well, and you have to be, of course, responsible. But the metrics of it is in the making, if you like. But again, it's synonymous. So addressing climate will be good in many aspects. The thing is, we can't, so to say, reduce our way out of this. It's a very important strategy to reduce, to prolong life, to resell and all of that. But we need to be at minus 90% carbon by 2050. And we're not going to, as humankind, reduce our way down to that number. So I would even say there's a risk to believe that that's the only thing we can bet on. We actually have to redefine material chains and everything, circularity and many more strategies. Now, the pre-owned platform in IKEA that we are testing, so we actually said We need to learn and engage with the second-hand market. We know that today approximately 10% of the value of the home furnishing market is second-hand. Interesting is that it's about 30% of the quantity because, of course, the lowest prices are second-hand. The myth that people like to throw away is not there, because if you can sell, you will do that because you earn a bit of money and you don't have to dispose. And then there are excellent platforms out there. So we first thought we don't have any value to share. But then actually the team came up with a lovely proposal where you as a buyer, you take a picture of an IKEA furniture, none of those on the stage, but it's very comfortable. But the price and the system, okay. But anyway, you take a picture, you get AI-generated images from our image banks. You get measurements, you get assembly guide, you get actually a generated proposal for price based on our data. And the buyer actually gets access for free delivery of spare parts if you buy it. So we think we kind of add some value to it. And then from a commercial reason, we are adding 15%. If you don't cash it in, you come to IKEA. We're adding 50%. And then the journalist said, but what happens if the customers cheat you on that? And we hadn't thought about that. So I said, that's not what our customers do. So let's see. But we are trying it, and we're trying to see if we can add value in this space in Norway and in Spain right now.
Yeah, it does seem challenging. I mean, obviously bringing in a jacket to a Patagonia store is very different than moving an armoire or a mattress, as the case may be.
Are you kidding?
My wife sent me a short list of spare parts. She was asking me to hit you up as well. Small wooden dowels and some...
That must be another furniture brand.
An inside track. Well, so when it comes to resale, recycling, spare parts, repairs, where are you seeing consumers most apt to change their behavior, and what seems most promising going forward?
I think, so first of all, product repair for us is something that we've got a multi-decade long history with. And I think, I'll tell you this almost through an emotional lens, but when you repair somebody's product that's got real deep memories for them, and we have got just libraries of letters and testimonials from customers. We also do repair on the road, so we have repair vehicles, and we'll send them to events. And at those events, we'll repair any product that we're capable of repairing. It doesn't have to be a Patagonia product, just to get people engaging with the idea of, as I said before, seeing themselves as an owner of something, not as a consumer of it. But so often you get people coming up and saying, my father gave me this, and I have all these memories of this, and now I have it, and it's got this broken zipper, or this broken, this tear in the sleeve, or whatever it may be. And when you can fix that and put new life back into it, it just is amazing to see the emotional resonance it has with people. So I think that's one that we've seen over decades, and it just, we continue to invest in it and continue to scale it. I think resale is another really interesting idea. There's a lot of, particularly in our industry, the outdoor industry, there's a lot of sort of questioning, is this just marketing? And I would say this on behalf of Patagonia, we don't get into these things if we don't think that there is a clear path to scaling. And the ideal state is that these ideas and these business models scale well beyond Patagonia. And so if any company in the industry wants to understand how to enable resale, give us a call. We'll walk you through it. We'll introduce you to partners, including those we've invested in and otherwise, because we're trying to drive systemic change around the relationship with goods.
Well, it seems like you're both talking about a shift in consumers' mentality from... I think Patagonia made a movie called The Shithropocene.
That's right. Yeah.
Anthropological look at
people's relationship
people's
with things.
Buying habits. But are you seeing an actual change in how consumers are shopping? Like, are they avoiding new? Are they thinking about price differently? Where are you seeing the biggest shifts?
I was shocked, candidly, Jesper, when you said a minute ago, if I got the statistics right, that about 30% buy units of furniture is secondhand, but only about 10% of dollars. God, I would have naturally thought it was a much larger number. So I'm curious, in your space, what you're saying.
I think old and new. So old is, which is important. People love to make a good deal. So the assist part of IKEA store has always been popular and will continue to be. Today we actually buy back furniture to that as well, and people do engage. But there is an incredibly interesting increasing trend of people engaging and listening to also colleagues of yours in the fashion industry and looking at my kids, it's the new cool. So I think it's not only about the conscious and the economics and all of that, but it's really like the new hype right now. So I went to Copenhagen to gather with my kids, and I also met a lot of students moving in. And we had a conversation, and at first I said, we want to have some designer items. And then we looked at the price of that, and they said no. And then it was like, then we go for secondhand and IKEA. And I think, and then sometimes secondhand IKEA as well. So, it is a way for us, I think, to relearn what is important for people and how we can engage. But again, the secondhand market for us is the lowest price of IKEA. So we need to understand how that's important for people. We approached it from an emotional perspective only to find out that the biggest thing we can do is actually very much about engineering. So in the linear IKEA, we created quality for assembly. We never thought of disassembly and assembly again and disassembly and assembly again. So we had to actually reconstruct and re-engineer a lot of our furniture pieces because they were not fit for that economy. And we have done that. And on the way, we found a new technology which is about clicking things together. So we're actually converting more and more of our furniture programs, which has the benefit you can do it faster. It's so much smarter from material, and it's also stronger from a fitting point of view. So our customers didn't ask us to be emotional with them, but they actually asked us to be smart on how to enable this to last and work better for them.
I would say what we're seeing is, go to resale now, I think there's two things that are foundationally important with resale and apparel. One is product quality. People, if it's not built to last, there's not much of a secondhand market for it. And I think the other piece is ease of purchasing. And, far be it from me to sit on too many stages and praise Amazon, but I will say this. I believe as a result of them making accessibility of secondhand books as simple as it is, there's probably a lot less new books printed in the world, and I would say that is a fantastic thing. And so one of the challenges we focused on is how do we create the same thing within Patagonia and secondhand Patagonia product, and how do we make it as easy as possible? So we're starting to roll out, we're doing 2-week digital releases right now by product categories. And if we've got, say, if you're looking for a black medium nano puff jacket, if we've got that item secondhand, the system will know and offer you that opportunity. It'll disrupt your shopping path and make that clear. If we've got something similar, it'll let you know that. And if neither are true, then it will just let you proceed.
I think I have time for one last question. I'm glad you mentioned Amazon, though. So I think it's heartening to hear that IKEA and Patagonia are taking these issues very seriously as retailers. But when I was looking at my phone last week at the top iPhone apps, number 3 was Temu and number 9 was Shein.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how do you square the sentiment you're talking about among consumers with this flood of cheap goods coming to the U.S.? And do you think the government needs to intervene or incentivize retailers who are operating differently?
Since you used a couple of apparel examples, I'll take that first. I think there's a lot there. First of all, I am sympathetic to people who, I've got 2 young kids myself, and although they're not on social media, it doesn't take just that to be assaulted by messaging that here's something new and you can buy it and it's easy to get and it's incredibly cheap and it'll make you popular. And so I think that's unfortunately, the sort of system within which we're operating. So I'm not going to offer a value statement on people making those choices. I think those choices have consequences, and those choices, $8 T-shirts, somebody's getting screwed, and it's probably it's certainly the people that made it, and it's probably the planet as well, and that's something that we've got to wrestle with as humans. You asked about government regulation. I'll go a little bit broader. I think the current administration is moving on this, and I applaud them doing so. But I actually think what is a different wrinkle on this, and we've had a number of conversations with people in the administration around it, is start creating more regulation to limit the wrong things. Start creating incentives to do the right things. And I think about trade policy. Mm-hmm. And if we can get real clear on more sustainable or less impactful ways of doing things, organic cotton, regenerative organic cotton, recycled materials, let's incentivize the things we want in parallel where needed in regulating the things we don't.
Yeah. Now, maybe short from my side also, we haven't thought so much about it or engaged in what they do. But let me think like this. If these companies you refer to, if they are, one, committed to Paris Agreement. 2, transparent about their total footprint and working on progress. I have no problem with it. If it's not a yes on these 3 questions, I have a massive problem. And to be honest, I think together with Ryan and a lot of other ones out there, we are corporates that are committed to Paris. We are transparent. We are on the bumpy ride. We do some mistakes. We fail with some things, but we're actually progressing. And our big data shows that. And I don't think at this time, when we look at the incredible impact of what we see around us, we spoke about that before coming on stage, how it seemingly things are picking up speed, and the human and planetary damage that we see around us is just devastating. So I'm not okay that any company, any business, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's home furnishing, whether it's garments, are not committed to Paris and trying the best to be part of the right side of humanity.
I think we are, unfortunately, all out of time, but thank you so much for joining me in the great conversation.